Okay, now that we've talked about how to add and subtract complex numbers, which is simply combining like terms, what we're going to do now is talk about how to multiply complex numbers by each other. So, I'm going to pick two complex numbers. Let's put my title back up there. Let's say 5 minus 3i times 2 plus 6i. Now, again, 5 minus 3i, single complex number made up of a real part and imaginary part. 2 plus 6i, also a single complex number made up of real part and imaginary part. And we're trying to multiply these things together. Now again, like I did in the last video, if I had given you this problem and said, multiply these things together, and you had never heard of complex numbers or or imaginary numbers or imaginary units or anything like that, you would probably look at this and go, oh, okay, I need to FOIL. And that's exactly what we're going to do here. There's just going to be one little extra step at the end. So we're going to FOIL. 5 times 2 is 10. Outer, 5 times 6i is 30i. Inner, negative 3i times 2 is negative 6i. Last, negative 3i times positive 6i would be negative 18i squared. Now, I'm going to combine like terms because that's what I would normally do when I'm FOILing, and these two are like terms. So that would be 24i minus 18i squared. Now, normally, this would be where you would stop. But because I is the square root of negative 1, that means when I square I, it should give me what is inside that square root, negative 1. Now keep in mind, that's kind of how square roots work, right? Square root of 2 times square root of 2 is 2. Square root of 3 times square root of 3 is 3. Square root of negative 1 times the square root of negative 1, which is what I times I is, which is what I squared is going to be negative 1. So any place you see an I squared, you replace that with negative 1. That is always the case. So now I've got 10 plus 24i minus 18 times negative 1. So negative 18 times negative 1 is positive 18. And now I can combine these two. And this is now going to look like one of those complex numbers that has a real part, the 28, and the imaginary part, 24i. So anytime you're multiplying complex numbers, here are the steps. You FOIL it out, combine like terms as normal, but anywhere you see an I squared, you replace it with negative 1, and then simplify down to the end.